DK Prepper, first ever YouTube video attempt, and a cheesy one on economic collapse. What I have done here is I put together a little flowchart on some possible scenarios that I think might lead to the events that would inevitably cause an economic collapse. And and I know it's hard to fathom something like this when you're full-time employed and you don't have enough time to do your research, and most of your news comes from a one-line headline or a brief news report from the mainstream, and I know it's difficult, so this is probably something that you're going to blow off as a conspiracy theory unless you've already woken up. But I think a lot of people are waking up to it, and there's a lot of YouTube videos out on things like this. The reason I wanted to make this particular video is because of the fact that, you know, when you think about economic collapse, you look for information to help you know when and how and why and what's going to happen, you know, after this collapse. And if you don't already believe the collapse is inevitable, you probably want to do some research, look around at some other concepts, and listen to the Federal Reserve Chairman. You know, he says it's unsustainable, and when a guy like that, who is in an institution designed to regulate non-volatility, and he's, you know, telling us that we're unsustainable, you gotta at least open your eyes a little bit, people, if you don't already believe in this. If you do, great. That's probably why you're here already. I don't need to convince you. All right. Do what you can to convince the rest, because the more people that are ready for this, the better. Anyways, what I've got here across the top of this little 8.5 by 11 paper, I had to zoom in on it because the words are so small, is some possible initial fuel for this fire. And first one I got is a stock market move, some stock market dip. If we have another, you know, 1K, 2K, or especially even a 3K, that'd be pretty big. That might initialize some type of moves to develop a financial crisis that could lead to something worse. So that, you know, you always want to be watching for that. And what I've got right here is I've got hidden lines and solid lines, where the hidden lines on this chart are going to represent possible events that would lead to some other event. So we'll go down that hidden line as soon as I get across the top here. The next thing that I always kind of watch for on Google News is not only the stock market, but I kind of watch what Ben Bernanke is doing. He's a fascinating person to me. A lot of people say he's the most powerful person in the world. He, to me, is, I can't say I like the guy, because I believe he's part of the insider big bankers group, but I can say that he's not stupid. From what he's done, he stopped this recession. He managed to get it stopped. And I'm not saying that's what I would have preferred him doing, but I know that traditionally in any recession you get out of it by raising interest rates, circulating money, which he's not doing. And we've seen it in the 70s, we've seen it earlier in the century, and that will cause very high interest rates that will get you out of a recession. And I think that if you've never heard anything about the Great Depression that never was, you might want to do some research on that, because this is exactly how they stop recessions. But Bernanke did not, and why? I don't know why. I can't believe that he didn't know any better, but perhaps our crisis was beyond the magnitude of going traditional routes. It definitely is now beyond the magnitude of traditional routes. You can't do that and expect to make up for it, or your interest rates will be off the charts. Could have been the insiders didn't want them to. I'm not sure what, but I'm not going to really get into that. But let's say Bernanke raises the interest rates and circulates all that money. What could be? It's extremely volatile, and he knows it, and he hasn't done anything yet, because he knows, and that it's going to have a chance to cause a deeper recession. With higher interest rates, you could actually even slow the economy. And when you start to get some of those ARM mortgage foreclosures, there's a lot of them, and increase the regular foreclosure rate. The banks can't hide any more than they're already hiding when it comes to bad bad loans, and that could be very volatile. And he knows it, and that's why he hasn't done anything. We're not ready for that yet. Hopefully, we can get ready for. Well, if we're going to go that route, when he believes we're going to get ready, he might go ahead and implement that. But that could lead to other problems down the road that we're going to look at. Then a scenario I have here, isn't this a beautiful chart here? Foreign relations crisis with U.S. debt holder. Well, okay, we got Geithner barking at China. China's, of course, always known as a big U.S. debt holder. But there's a lot of other ones and a lot of other scenarios that could lead somebody to deliberately leave our debt pool. Or they could just spook out a little bit. But we got people like, we got people like China and Japan and the Euro group over there. We got India. There's a lot of big debt holders, and if something caused a crisis with them, that might be something to look for early on in the news for an early warning system on this economic collapse. And go down to a major debt holder spooks out. Somebody pulls out. Others are already a little bit worried about this. If somebody pulls out, that could lead others to pull out. It could lead to a domino effect. So that, to me, is something that might lead to these problems. Now, this is already happening. Nobody's spooked. They might be spooked, but they're not leaving all at once. They're kind of shuffling out quietly because they know that everybody who's in our debt pool knows that it's kind of like a little nuclear war. Once one person pulls out, everybody's going to get killed. Financially, China, it's we buy from them, and if we don't, they're going to have huge, crazy, insane unemployment, and everybody's in the same way. Is that the monster America kind of buys everybody's stuff, and nobody wants us to stop buying. But if we had a major debt holder spook out, we could expect some serious problems, ramifications. So that's another scenario. Then we got up here, and I'm going across the top. This one is simply time expiring on the U.S. debt. Now this one is kind of obvious. It's unsustainable, they say. So I don't think anybody can really argue with this. It's our national debt's going up. It's becoming so much more than our income at this point that it's almost like they know it to the point where they don't care because they don't believe they'll have to pay it back. They can print money and get into debt and spend money. Even with economic freezes, which happened last week, I think we got a $500 billion request by Obama today for schools and teachers. It's silly. It just can't happen. We're going to run into problems where the debt eventually becomes a high enough percentage of the GDP where we lose our rating and everybody just says goodbye. So that one is, and I got a little blue highlighter marker there because I think that's kind of the route we're going right now. And another element of that particular scenario is that we got the insider big banks who are feeding off that. They're absolutely feeding off this, and they're loving it, and they're thriving because the big banks right now have been aligned with the Fed, where all they need to do is call up Bernanke, get him to allocate or print, whatever, billions, and all they do is take that zero interest or 0.25% interest money, buy treasuries, collect more interest back, and nobody can audit them, nobody can do anything about it. It's all secret, and they make money without even leaving the house. It's a big scam. They should all be locked up. But the big bankers, the most richest